How you doing? This is D again, and welcome to the podcast that I still am not sure what I'm naming, but this is the next episode. I don't even know if I recorded, I believe, an episode on my phone during a hike I was on this trip, and I'm not sure what the quality of that was, so I'm not sure if I'll use it or not. So it's hard for me to count the episode numbers for this trip. It's been about a week since I last recorded. I picked up my friend JB in Kansas City. We drove out to Tennessee. Just a real quick recap. Stayed near the Opryland and Tennessee, and then started hiking and hiked along around Chattanooga for a couple of days, which was great. And then drove on down into Georgia, and then finished driving down towards Orlando to do some theme park stuff. I have an itch. That might be the best term for it, an itch for theme parks. Originally Disney, but I do some Universal. I've tried to explain it 1,001 times where it comes from, why I have it, why other people can't understand it, but I never have. So anyway, I am now down here at a resort here at Disney, and my buddy just went back home. I didn't want to record. I just didn't feel like recording while he was here. We were doing a lot of things, and just the two of us hanging out, having a good time. But I value that so much, and such a good friend. Couldn't have a better buddy going through this life to have. I could rely on. So every now and then we try to get together. It had been about 4 years since we did a trip together, so we did this one, which was hiking and some theme parks and that kind of stuff. So, but I just dropped him off at the airport and just got back to the condo here, and hitting that wall of emotion, which I do. I think I have this fear of being alone. I know I'm not the only person that has this fear, and that's why I like to talk about it on this channel. And talk about so many other things we deal with, the crap, the shit we deal with in this life. And being alone is one of those. I'm still not quite up for flying. I mean, I'll fly if I need to, but I'm not feeling comfortable flying yet. So anyway, I'm driving this whole trip, and I'm driving back home, and of course, many of you, I'm recording this today when a big storm just went through the country, dropping a foot of snow in much of the Midwest and severe thunderstorms and tornadoes in the South, and it just left the East Coast. This is now Wednesday. What is it? It's Wednesday, January 10th. So if you recall, that's the storm that just went through, and there's another one behind it and maybe another one behind it. So that will dictate how I get home. I have to drive through that stuff, so I'm going to be driving a southern route, taking it along the coast and staying in warmer weather for a while to avoid the winter weather, and then when it looks like I have a clear window, pop up north into Colorado and head home. But it's a solid 3-day drive to get back home to Colorado. I allotted myself 5 days, so I have some wiggle room for weather, and that's what I do. This is about being on a road trip. It's about being me. But yeah, right now I wish I could snap my fingers and just be home. But it doesn't work that way. I'm missing my wife big time. Miss my dog. I miss being home. And I've been gone for a while. It's been almost 2 weeks since I left. So yeah, it's been a little while. And I look forward to getting back and seeing them. But now some of you don't have that other person in your home, and some of you are surrounded by, spouse and kids, and partner, and and parents and whatever. And some of you have nobody at home when you go home, and I've lived that way too. I've lived on my own a few different times along the way, and you get used to it. You learn to adjust. I don't think most of us prefer that, but it does seem today it's becoming more common, I think. But anyway, I'm going to pick this up again now that I'm alone. I plan to talk with you on the way home and talk about a lot of different topics. Like I mentioned, I have all these things I want to talk about, but everything's going to revolve around just life. What is it about? Anxiety? How do we deal with it? That's the core of this new podcast. And I'm just winging it, and I'm just talking with you. I'm not prepping these much at all, if any. And maybe I'll share some of the experiences as I go along. But right now, I am, just on that edge of tears, because I always get that way. And after about a day of being alone, like when my wife leaves on a trip or I leave on a trip, that first day is hard. I get really alone for a while. But then the second day is better, and the third day I get into a groove and I get used to being solo. And I know I'll do that on this trip too, and it'll be okay. And I believe it's good for us to do this. And one of the reasons why I drive this, and one of the reasons why I do these trips every now and then, and encourage my wife to do trips with her friends and family sometimes, is it's good to be apart from each other, even when you are so devoted and love each other as much as my wife and I do. I think it's healthy. I think it's good for us to miss each other. I love the fact, and I mentioned this, I think, on maybe the first of the series, that it was so hard to leave. And that's one of the messages I left her with on a note, that I am so happy that it's still this hard to leave. I just really love being with her, and that's a really good thing. And I just want to remind myself how blessed I am, and how blessed anybody is who has found a partner to spend their time with. I'm incredibly lucky to have found my wife almost 30 years ago now, and to have been married now for 27, and looking forward to the next 27. I can't imagine this life without her, and having that person to share it with, to be a witness to my life. I think that's incredible. Oh, this is crazy. I've stayed off. It's been nice being on vacation because I've stayed away from the news. I'm not seeing YouTube. I'm not watching the news. I'm not watching all the stuff that I get tuned into. And that's really good. It really helps my mood. And also it kind of helps hanging out with a friend who we don't agree on everything. We disagree on some politics things, stuff like that. So we have good conversations, and sometimes they're heated. But it's the kind of friendship that doesn't matter, because we'll always be best friends regardless of what we think, and we educate each other, I think. I think it's good for us to be friends because we help each other understand. But it brings up that topic of the divisiveness, and I've mentioned this several times on my Benzo Free podcast, but the divisiveness that is in this country, that's the U.S., that's in the world right now. And I think it all comes down to how quick we are to judge one another, how quick we are to blame one another, how quick we are to hate one another. I don't remember it being that way. Now maybe I'm using, rose-colored glasses. I don't know. But I don't remember it being that way. I remember disagreeing with people and being okay with that. I remember having lively discussions and being okay with that. But I remember still loving people and liking people who I didn't agree with. And I don't know when that switched or how that switched or what happened, but it's so ridiculous in my mind, even though I'm as guilty as anyone. It's so ridiculous because I truly believe in our core, in our souls, inside, in the heart, deep inside of us, we are so much the same. I talked about being alone, and I think we all struggle for love. We all struggle for companionship. We all want to share this life with someone. Some of us seem happier alone, and maybe they are, but I think we're designed, whether it's, through a supreme being, whether it's through evolution, however all we were designed. We're designed to be partnered. We're designed to be with others. We're designed to be with family. I believe that. It just seems how we're set up, and I'm really pleased that I have a good family around me and an amazing spouse, and I'm grateful for that. But that's something we all have in common. I think at least the majority of us have that in common. I think we all want to be respected. We all want to be appreciated. We all want to leave something behind, a legacy or children or something. We want to mark on this world that, hey, I was here. We want our lives to mean something. I think that's easier for people who have had children, because that is your legacy. That is what you're leaving behind, and that's amazing. My wife and I don't have children, and so that leaves maybe a hole in my life of what am I leaving behind, and maybe these podcasts I do are that. I hope so. I hope it leads to that. I think the Benzo Free podcast has made a difference. I know it's made a difference in some people's lives. I hope this podcast connects as much as that one did. Even if it's to just one person, I still hope that podcast connects and helps that one person out, and helps that one person feel less alone, and helps that one person feel less divided, less on the outside. And I that's the people I think I really want to reach with this podcast. It's the outsiders. Those of us who never quite felt like we belonged. I've spent my whole life trying to belong in a ridiculous kind of capacity, and I still do it because I thrive on appreciation, on acknowledgement, on companionship, on approval. Those are some cornerstones. I'm not saying that's healthy and that I don't need to work on changing that, but part of that is understanding where I am. It's hard to change unless you understand who you are now. But I've always relied on people's approval and people's attention, and that's gotten me into a lot of difficult situations. I've been in several organizations where I was just dying to belong, and I would work my butt off to do my best. This is a pattern I have over and over and over again, to fit in, to be one. And often I would pick places where I'll never belong. I just don't fit in. But I would just try even harder. And over time, sometimes a couple years, sometimes 10 years, in some examples I have, I finally realized this isn't working. Now my wife, she realizes it long before I do. But I'm slow on the uptake. And it comes back to really simple things, for me at least. And this is part of that whole need for approval and acceptance and everything. And that is the people who really care about you, the ones who really love you or like you, or just, they're the ones who like you as you are. I'm not saying we don't try to change ourselves sometimes to better ourselves, to have a better life, to be better husbands and wives and partners and parents and children and grandparents. But I think that all starts with being okay with ourselves. And to me, that's probably one of the biggest things age has brought to me, is learning to really understand myself, including all my flaws, and I have a shitload of them, trust me, but including all my flaws, and being okay with those flaws. Some I may change a little bit, some I never will. And that's why being okay with them is so essential. And I think we all struggle with that. Again, that's why we're so much the same deep inside. Yeah, we might be different genders, we might be different races, we might be different, living in different countries, speak different languages, be more logical or more emotional, or there's so many things that we can be different about, and that's awesome. But in our core, most of us want to be heard, to find respect, to make a difference on this world, to have somebody, a companion to go through, or companions to go through this world together. I think we all want that. We want some kind of success, something to say, hey, you made a difference. I mean, we want to find a way to provide for ourselves, for our lives, or our family. I think these are all universal desires. We are so much the same deep inside, and yet we're also different. And it's awesome. I think it's just awesome. I don't know. Most of the time I don't know. And I'm not here for 1 second professing that I have answers, all the answers, or just even answers whatsoever. I'm going to be wrong a lot. And I'm going to be searching for answers. This is a journey where we're looking together. That's really what I want this podcast to be. It's a quest. A quest. Da, 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 da. It's a quest. I know it sounds way too noble. I don't mean some formal freaky quest, like that's, in some Dungeons and Dragons game or something, whatever. I don't know what the quest, there's a lot of quests out there, but what I'm saying is the quest of this is, just trying to figure this life out. Is there meaning to life? And if so, what is it? And is there spirituality in life? And if so, is that individual, which I think it is for each person, but how do you find your spirituality? How do you find, your meaning in life? And then how do you stay true to that? How do you focus on that? How do you be a good partner and a good friend? How do you do these things? This isn't as simple as it looks. We run into problems all the time. But I think you start with kindness. I think you start with compassion. I think you start with curiosity. I think you start with trying to understand. What's the saying? Seek first to understand. I think that's a pretty good mantra. Start out trying to understand. If there's somebody you disagree with across the table, even strongly so, try to understand where they're coming from. Even if your plan in the end is to debate them to the nth degree to convince them you're right, the best way to do that is to understand them and where they're coming from. Most of the time, we find out that we're not that far apart. We just differ in a few values there and there. And that's okay. Well, this condo here has gotten a little less lonely just by talking to you, and you're going to be my friend for the next 3 to 5 days. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming along with me on this journey. I appreciate it. I'm not saying this is going to be gold or silver or bronze or some limestone rock buried underneath a pile of dirt. I don't know what it's going to be, but I kind of feel good about starting out with low expectations. I don't mean that to mean I not want to strive for the best we can be here, and I think we should. But I don't mind if the bar is a little lower at the beginning and we just start doing it. Because then the only place we can go is up. But most of all, if I'm not worried about the quality all the time, if I'm not worried about the content being perfect, if I'm not worried about using the right keywords or, search engine optimization or, hey, here's your top 5 ways to avoid anxiety. It's like the campy things are there. They're everywhere. What do I mean by campy? I guess I mean the package stuff, how to reduce your anxiety in 5, 10 easy steps or whatever. We might do some of that. But I think the first thing I need to do is connect. Be a friend. If you're struggling with anxiety, moderate, severe, mild, doesn't matter. I hope I can be helpful. If you're struggling with benzos and benzo withdrawal, I hope this podcast is helpful to you too. We're not going to focus on tapering. We're not focusing on the medication or even symptoms per se. But anxiety is such a huge piece of benzodiazepines and coming off the drugs that I hope many of you will find this helpful. This is the one I need to do. My buddy and I talked a lot about this podcast and maybe which direction we take it, and it's been very helpful, I think. So I'm going to take some of those lessons and some of that advice and start to integrate it into this and start to mold it. And within 10 to 20 episodes, probably, maybe longer, it'll start to take shape. The number one rule in my mind and what I've heard and what I found true in podcasting is the Nike slogan, just do it. And that's what I'm doing. I'm kicking this off on this trip. I'm bringing you along on a trip. And it's kind of cool. In fact, if you want to join me, it's one of the things is right now I'm kind of depressed, as you know. But many of you probably thinking, or how can you be depressed when you are in, what some people call the happiest place on earth. And some of you probably are thinking, God, I could never want to go there again. And I get it. The crowds are big, they're bad, they're a struggle, and I deal with that too. And honestly, I think nostalgia for this place is lessening a little bit each time I come down. I don't have quite the connection. It's been 4 years since I've been to Disney World and to the Universal Parks, and it'll probably be even longer next time. I'm getting older. Maybe that inner child that I try to hang on to, because I think so many people have lost it, but that inner child that I try to hang on to so desperately. Maybe that inner child is growing up a little bit or fading or whatever the appropriate analogy is. But I'm looking out here over, for those of you who know Disney World, from my window I can see the Tower of Terror, the Skyway, the Swan and Dolphin hotels, top of the American Adventure, and Spaceship Earth. It's not a bad view. I just want to remember how blessed I am that I'm able to come down here and take this kind of vacation and spend this kind of time and have a friend who will come down with me and do that too. So I think I'm going to sign off here for a little bit. I'll be back soon. I'm supposed to go to one of the parks for a nighttime event tonight. I'm heading over to Hollywood Studios tonight. I've already been there a couple days ago, but I'm going back for a night event when the crowd should be a little thinner. I'm hoping to bring you along. I don't know if I can take my recorder in, but I think I can, and bring you along and see how it goes. I want to thank you for coming with me on this trip, and I will be back soon. Bye. Hey, this is Dee. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out our podcast. I do need to remind everyone that this podcast is for informational purposes only and should never be considered medical, psychological, or professional health advice of any kind. If you or someone you know is dealing with significant mental health issues, please seek professional help. Resources can be found in our show notes and on our website at unevenpodcast.com. Take care of yourself, and I'll catch you on the flip side.